start the audiobook for new book immediately without question or fail or even like a joke. Just the entire police department being like, oh, we have to start a call all of a sudden. Also, why isn't my mouth moving? Better. Much better. Hello, everyone. My name's Stonsey Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonsey. We are starting on a new book. It's called Scythe. Scythe is a very interesting book. I've already read it, so you guys aren't going to see me have reactions over anything. This is one of those times where I'm like rereading a book that I've already read, and as such, it doesn't make for the most amazing content, but it's still a book that is really, really good. The thing is it's very slow paced, so that's always kind of an issue. And I don't really know if it counts as a young adult book, or at least it's more tame than the Garden. Definitely more tame than that. I was gonna read another book, but I feel like we need to start on series, and definitely the Scythe series. I have the entire series. I just haven't gotten around to reading it. I'm also standing up for some reason. Oh, that's why. Because my chair is freaking cold because I haven't been on it all day. I played Fortnite this morning, and that's about it. Today we're reading chapters 1 and 2, pages 1 to 30, which seems like a lot. It is. But it was either that or we read pages 1 to, or chapters 1 to 15, or only chapter 1, but page 1 to 15, which is really just nothing. Actually, I don't know why I didn't do that. That's kind of stupid of me, isn't it? All right, my dog is gonna make all the noise in the world now, which is great. So, without further ado, let us begin. Scythe. Part 1. Robe and Ring. We must by law keep a record of the innocents we kill, and as I see it, they're all innocent. Even the guilty. Everyone is guilty of something, and everyone still harbors a memory of child innocence, no matter how many layers of life wrap around it. Humanity is innocent. Humanity is guilty. Both states are undeniably true. We must by law keep a record. It begins one day one of apprenticeship, but we do not officially call it killing. It's only socially or morally correct to call it such. It is, and has always been, gleaning. Named by the way the poor would trail behind farmers in ancient times, talking of the stray stalks of grain left behind. It is the earliest form of charity. Scythe's work is the same. Every child is told from day he or she is old enough to understand that the Scythes provide a crucial service for society. Ours is the closest thing to a sacred mission a modern world knows. Perhaps that is why we must, by law, keep a record, a public journal testifying to those who will never die, and those who are not yet to be born, as to why we human beings do the things we do. We are instructed to write down not just the deeds, but our feelings, because it must be known that we do have feelings, remorse, regret, sorrow to bear, because if we didn't feel those things, what monsters would we be? From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Chapter 1. No dimming of the sun. The Scythes arrived late in the cold November afternoon. Citra was at the dining room table, slaving over a particularly difficult algebra problem, shuffling variables unable to solve for x or y, when this new and far more pernicious variable entered her life's equation. Guests were frequent at the Terranova's apartment, so when the doorbell rang, there was no sense of foreboding, no dimming of the sun, no foreshadowing the arrival of death at the door. Perhaps the universe would be designated to provide such warnings. Besides, we're no supernatural than tax collectors in the grand scheme of things. They showed up, did their unpleasant business, and were gone. Her mother answered the door. Citra didn't see the visitor, as he was, at first, hidden by her view by the door when it opened. What she saw was how her mother stood there, suddenly immobile, and as her veins solidified within her, as if she tipped over, she could fall to the floor and shatter. "May I enter, Miss Terranova?" The visitor's tone of voice gave him away. Resident inevitable, like the dull toll of an iron bell, confident in the ability of its peal to reach all those who need reaching. Citra knew before she even saw him that it was a Scythe. My God, a Scythe has come to our home. Yes, yes, of course, come in. Citra's mother stepped aside and allowed him entry, as if she were a visitor and not the other way around. He stepped over the threshold, his soft slipper-like shoes making no sound on the pancake floor. His multi-layer robe was smooth ivory linen, and although it reached as low as the dust of the floor, there was not a spot of dirt on it anywhere. A Scythe, Citra knew, should choose the color of his or her robe to every color except for black, for it was considered inappropriate for their job. Black was an absence of light, and Scythes were the opposite, luminous and enlightened. They were acknowledged by the best of humanity, which is why they were chosen for this job. Some Scythes' robes were bright, some were muted. They looked like the rich, flowing robes of the Renaissance angels, both heavy yet lighter than air. The unique style of Scythe robes, regardless of the fabric or color, made them easy to spot in public, which made them easy to avoid if avoidance was a person wanted. Just as many were drawn to them, the color of the robe often said a lot about the Scythe's personality. This Scythe's ivory robe was pleasant, and far enough from true white not to assault the eye for its brightness, but none of this changed the fact of who and what he was. He pulled off his hood to reveal a cut gray hair, a mournful face, red-cheeked in the chilly day, and dark eyes that seemed themselves almost to be weapons. Citra stood, not out of respect, but out of fear, shocked. She tried to hyperventilate. She tried not to let her knees buckle beneath her. They were betraying her by wobbling, so she forced fortitude into her legs, tightening her muscles. Whatever the Scythe's purpose here, he would not want to see her crumble. You may close the door, he said to Citra's mother, who did so, although Citra would see how difficult it was for her. A Scythe in the foyer could still turn around if the door was open. The moment that the door was closed, he was truly inside one's home. He looked around, spotting Citra immediately. He offered a smile. Hello, Citra, he said. The fact that he knew her name froze her just to solidify his appearance that had frozen her mother. Don't be rude, her mother said too quickly. Say hello to our guest. Good day, Your Honor. Hi, said her younger brother, Ben, who had just come from his bedroom door, having heard the deep, pale peal of the Scythe's voice. Ben was barely able to speak out the one-word greeting. He looked at Citra and to his mother, thinking the same thing they're all thinking. Who has he come for? Will it be me, or will I be left to suffer the loss? I've smelled something inviting in the hallway, the Scythe said, breathing the aroma. Now I see I was right in thinking I came from this apartment. It's baked ziti, Your Honor, nothing special. Until this moment, Citra has never known her mother to be so timid. It's good, he said to the Scythe, because I require nothing special. When he sat on the sofa and waited patiently for dinner. Was it too much to believe that a man was here for a meal and nothing more? After all, Scythes had to eat somewhere. Customarily, restaurants never charged him for food, and that didn't mean the home-cooked meal was not more desirable. There were rumors that Scythes were required of the victims to prepare them a meal before getting gleamed. Is what's happening here? Whatever his intentions, he kept them to himself, and they had no choice but to give him whatever he wanted. Will he spare the life here today if the food is his taste? Citra wondered. To his surprise, that people bent and backward to please Scythe in every possible way, hope in the shadow of fear in the world's most powerful motivator. Citra's mother brought him something to drink at his request, and now labored to make sure tonight's dinner was the finest she'd ever served. Cooking was not her specialty. Usually, she returned home from work just in time to throw something quick together for them. Tonight, their lives might be the rest of their questionable culinary skills, and their father? Would he be home in time, or would the gleaning of his family take place in his absence? As terrified as Citra was, she did not want to leave the Scythe alone with his own thoughts, so she went to the living room with him. Ben, who was clearly fascinated as he was fearful, sat with her. The man finally introduced himself to the Honorable Scythe Faraday. I did the report on Faraday for school once, Ben said, his voice cracking only once. You picked a pretty cool scientist to name yourself after. Scythe Faraday smiled. I like to think I chose an appropriate patron historic. Like many scientists, Michael Faraday was underappreciated in his life, yet our world would not be what it is without him. I think I have you in my Scythe card collection, Ben went on. I have almost all the mid-American Scythes, but you were younger in the picture. The man seemed perhaps 60, although his hair had gone gray. His goatee was salt and pepper. It was rare for a person to let themselves reach such an age before resetting back to their more useful self. Citra wondered how old he truly was. How long had he been charged in ending lives? Do you look your true age, or are you at far end of time by choice? Citra asked. Citra, her mother nearly dropped a casserole she had just taken out of the oven. What a question to ask. I like the direct questions, the Scythe said. They show an honesty in spirit, and I'll give an honest answer. I admit to having turned the corner 4 times. My natural age is somewhere near 180, although I forgot the exact number. Of late, I've chosen this venerable appearance because I find that those Gleam make more comfort in it. Then he laughed. They think me wise. Is that why you're here? Blen blurted. To glean one of us? Since Faraday offered an unreadable smile. I'm here for dinner. Citra's father arrived just as dinner was about to be served. Her mom had apparently informed them of the situation, so he was much more emotionally prepared than the rest of them been. As soon as he entered, he went straight over to the Scythe Faraday to shake his hand, and pretending far more jovial and inviting than he truly must have been. The meal was awkward, mostly silence, punctured by the occasional comment from the Scythe. You have a lovely home. What flavorful lemonade! This may be the best baked ziti in all of mid-America. Even though everything he said was complimentary, his voice registered a Semitic shock down everyone's spine. I haven't seen you in the neighborhood, Citra's father finally said. I don't suppose you have, he answered. I am not a public figure that some other Scythes choose to be. Some Scythes prefer the spotlight, but truly do the job right, and it requires a level of anonymity. Right? Citra blasted the idea. Where is there a right way to glean? Well, he answered, there are certainly wrong ways, and said nothing more about it. He just ate his ziti. As the meal neared its close, he said, Tell me about yourselves. It was a question or a request. It could only be read as a demand. Citra wasn't sure whether this was part of his little dance of death or he genuinely interested. He knew their names before he entered the apartment. He was probably already knew all the things they could tell him. Then why ask? I work in historical research, her father said. I'm a food synthesis engineer, said her mother. The Scythe raised his eyebrows. And yet you've cooked this from scratch? He put down her fork. All from synthesized ingredients? Yes, but if we can synthesize anything, he offered, why did you need all the food synthesis engineers? Citra could practically see the blood drain from his mother's face. It was her father who rose to defend his wife's existence. There are already room for improvement. Yeah, and Dad's work is important too, Ben said. What a historical research. The Scythe waved his fork, dismissing the notion. The past never changes, and from what I can see, neither does the future. While her parents and brother were perplexed and troubled by the comments, Citra understood the point he was making. The growth of civilization was complete. Everyone knew it. When it came to the human race, there was no more left to learn. Nothing about their own existence to decipher, which meant that no one person was more important than any other. In fact, in the grand scheme of things, everyone was equally useless. That's what he was saying, and it infuriated Citra, because on a certain level, she knew he was right. Citra was well known for her temper, it often arrived more reason, and left only after the damage was done. Tonight would be no exception. Why are you doing this? If you're going to glean one of us, just get it over with and stop torturing us. Her mother gasped and her father pushed back his chair as if ready to get up and physically remove her from the room. Citra, what are you doing? Now her mother's voice is quivering. Show respect. No, he's here. He's going to do it. So let him do it. It's not like he didn't decide it. I've heard Scythes already make up their mind before they enter her home. Isn't that right? The Scythe was unperturbed of the outburst. Some do, some don't, he said gently. We each have our own way of doing things. By now Ben was crying. Dad put his arms around him and the boy was inconsolable. Yes, Scythes must glean, Faraday said, but we also must eat and sleep and have a simple conversation. Citra grabbed the empty plate away from him. Well, the meal is done, so you can leave. Then her father approached him. He fell to his knees. Her father was actually on his knees to this man. Please, Your Honor, forgive her. I took full responsibility for her behavior. The Scythe stood. An apology isn't necessary. It's refreshing to be challenged. You have no idea how tedious it gets. The pandering, the obvious flattery, the endless parade of sycophants. A slap in the face is bracing. It reminds me that I'm human. When he went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest, sharpest knife he could find, he swished it back and forth, getting a feel for how it cut through the air. Ben's wails grew, and the father's grip tightened on him. The Scythe approached her mother, Citra, and nearly hurled himself in front of her to block the blade. But instead of swinging the knife, the man held out his other hand. Kiss my ring. No one was expecting this, least of all Citra. Citra's mother stared at them, shaking the head, not willing to believe. You're granting me immunity? For your kindness and the meal you served, I grant you 1 year immunity from gleaning. No Scythe may touch you. But she hesitated. Granted to my children instead. Still, the Scythe held out his ring to her. It was a diamond the size of his knuckle with a dark core. It's the same ring all Scythes wore. I'm offering to you, not them. But, Jenny, just do it, insisted her father. And so she did. She knelt and kissed the ring. And her DNA was read and transmitted to the Scytheum's immunity database. It was an instant the world grew that Jenny Terranova was safe from gleaning in the next 12 months. The Scythe looked at his ring, which now glowed faintly red, indicating that the person before him had immunity from gleaning. He grinned and satisfied. And finally, he told them the truth. I'm here to glean your neighbor, Bridget Chadwell, Scythe Faraday informed them, but she was not home yet, and I was hungry. He gently touched Ben on the head, as if delivering some sort of benediction. It seemed to calm him. When the Scythe moved the door, the knife still in hand, leaving no question in the method of the neighbor's gleaning, but before he left, he turned to Citra. You see through facades of the world, Citra Terranova. You'd make a good Scythe. Citra recoiled. But I never want to be one. That, he said, is the first requirement. Then he left to kill their neighbor. They didn't speak of it that night. No one spoke of gleanings. As if it was speaking about it might bring it upon them. There were no sounds the next door, no screams, no pleading wails, or perhaps the Terranova's TV was turned up too loud to hear it. It was the first thing Citra's father did once the Scythe left. Turn on the TV and blast it to drown out the gleaning on the other side of the wall. But it was unnecessary, because however a Scythe accomplished his task, it was done quietly. Citra found herself straining to hear something, anything. Both she and Ben discovered them themselves in morbid curiosity that made them secretly ashamed. An hour later, Honorable Scythe Faraday returned. It was Citra who had opened the door. His ivory robe held not a single splatter of blood. Perhaps he had a spare one. Perhaps he had used the neighbor's washing machine after a gleaning. The knife was clean too, and he handed it to Citra. "We don't want it," Citra told him, feeling pretty sure she could speak for her parents on the matter. "We'll never use it again." "But you must use it," he insisted, "so that it might remind you." "Remind us of what?" "That a scythe is merely an instrument of death, but it's your hand that swings me. You and your parents and everyone else in this world are wielders of scythes." Then he gently put the knife in their hand. "We're all accomplices. You must share the responsibility." That may have been true, but after she was gone, Citra still dropped the knife into the trash. It is the most difficult thing a person can be asked to do, and knowing that it's greater good doesn't make it any easier. People used to die naturally. Old age used to be a terminal affliction, but not a temporary state. There were invisible killers called diseases that broke the body down. Aging couldn't be reversed, and there were accidents from which there was no return. Planes fell from the sky, cars actually crashed, and there was pain, misery, despair. It's hard for most of us to imagine a world so unsafe, with dangers lurking in every unseen, unplanned corner. All of that's behind us now. And yet a simple truth remains: people have to die. It's not as if we can go somewhere else. The disasters on the moon and Mars colonies prove that. We have one very limited world, and although death has been defeated as completely as polio, people still must die. The ending of human life used to be in the hands of nature, but we stole it. Now we have a monopoly on death. We are its sole distributor. I understand why we are science and how important and unnecessarily the work is, but I often wonder why I had to be chosen. And if there were some eternal world after this one, what fate awaits the taker of lives? From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Chapter 2. 303%. Tiger Salazar had hurled himself out of the 39-story window, leaving a terrible mess on the marble plaza below. His own parents, who were so annoyed by it, they didn't come to see him, but Rowan did. Rowan Damish was just the kind of friend. He sat by Tiger's bedside with the revival center, waiting for him to awake from the speed healing. Rowan didn't mind. The revival center was quiet, peaceful, and it was a nice break from the turmoil of his home, which lately had been filled with more relatives than any human should be allowed to expect to endure. Cousins, second cousins, siblings, half-siblings, and now his grandmother, who had returned home after turning a corner for the third time, with the new husband and baby on the way. "You're going to have a new aunt, Rowan," she said, announced. "Isn't that wonderful?" The whole thing pissed Rowan's mother off, because this time Grandma had reset all the way down to 25, making her 10 years younger than her daughter. Now Mom felt pressure to turn corner herself, if only to keep up with Grandma. Grandpa was much more sensible. He was off in Euroscandia, charming the ladies and maintaining his age at respectable 38. Rowan, at 16, had resolved that he would experience gray hair before he turned the first corner, and even then he would reset so far down as it to be embarrassing. Some people reset to 21, which is the youngest genetic therapy could make a person. Rumor has, though, they were working on ways to reset right down into the teens, which Rowan found ridiculous. Why would anyone with a right mind want to be a teenager more than once? When he glanced down at his friends, Tiger's eyes were open and studying Rowan. "Hey," Rowan said. "How long?" Tiger said. 4 days. Tiger pumped his fist in triumph. "Yes, a new record." He looked at his hands as if taking stock of the damage. There was, of course, no damage left. One did not wake up from speed healing until there was nothing left to heal. "Do you think it was jumping from such a high floor that did it? Or was it a marble plaza?" "Probably the marble," Rowan said. "Once you reach terminal velocity, it doesn't matter how high you are when you jump." "Did I crack it? Did they have to replace the marble?" "I don't know, Tiger. Geez, enough already." Tiger leaned back into his pillow, immensely pleased with himself. "Best splat ever." Rowan found that he had patience to wait for his friend to wake up, but no patience for him now that he was conscious. "Why do you even do it? I mean, such a waste of time." Tiger shrugged. "I like the way it feels on the way down. Besides, I gotta remind my parents that the lettuce is here." That made Rowan chuckle. It was Rowan who did coin the term lettuce kid and describe them. Both of them were both born sandwiched somewhere in the middle of the large families, and were far from being their parents' favorites. I got a couple of brothers that are the meat, a few sisters that are cheese and tomatoes, so I guess I'm the lettuce. The idea caught on, and Rowan had started a club called the Iceberg Heads at school, which now bragged almost 24 members. Although Tiger doesn't often tease that he was going to go rogue and start a Romaine revolt. The tiger had started splatting a few months ago. Rowan tried it once and found it monumental pain. He ended up behind on all his schoolwork, and his parents levied all forms of punishment, which they properly forgot to enforce. One of the perks of being a lettuce, still, the thrill of the drop wasn't worth the cost. Tiger, on the other hand, had become a splatting junkie. You gotta find a new hobby, man, Rowan told him. I know your first revival was free, but the rest are costing your parents a fortune. Yeah, and for once they have to spend their money on me. Wouldn't you rather they buy you a car? Revival is compulsory, Tiger said. A car is optional. If they're forced to spend it, they won't. Rowan didn't argue with that. He didn't have a car either and doubted his parents would ever get him one. The public cars were clean, efficient, and drove themselves. His parents had argued that it would be a point of spending good money on something that he didn't need. Meanwhile, they threw money in every direction but his. We're rawhide, the Tiger said. If we don't cause a little intestinal distress, no one knows we're here. The following morning, Rowan came face to face with a Scythe. It was unheard to see a Scythe in his neighborhood. You couldn't help but run into one once in a while, but they didn't often show up in a high school. The encounter was Rowan's fault. Punctuality was not a strong point, especially now that he was expected to escort younger siblings and half-siblings to their school before hopping into a public car and hurrying to his. He had just arrived and was heading to the attendance show when the Scythe came around the corner, his spotless ivory robe flaring behind him. Once, when hiking with his family, Rowan got off on his own and encountered a mountain lion. The tight feeling in his chest now was weak feeling in his loins, and even exactly the same. Fright or flight, his biology said, but Rowan had done neither. Back then, he had fought those instincts and calmly raised his arms as read to do, making himself look larger. It had worked, and the animal bounded away, saving him a trip to the local revival center. Now, at the sudden prospect of a Scythe before him, Rowan had an odd urge to do the same. As if raising his hands above his head would frighten the Scythe away, the thought made him involuntarily laugh out loud. The last thing you would want to do to laugh at a Scythe. Could you direct me to the main office? A man asked. Rowan considered giving him the directions and heading the opposite way, but decided that it was too cowardly. I'm going there, Rowan said. I'll take you. The man would appreciate helpfulness, and getting on the good side of a Scythe couldn't hurt. Rowan led the way, passing other kids in the hall. Students who looked like him were late and were just on an errand. They all gawked and tried to disappear in the wall as he and the Scythe passed. Somehow, walking through the hall with a Scythe became less frightening when there were others to bear the fear instead. And Rowan couldn't deny that it was a bit heady to be cast as Scythe's trailblazer. Riding in the cone in such respect, it wasn't until they reached the office of the truth hit home. The Scythe was going to glean one of Rowan's classmates today. Everyone in the office stood in the moment, and they all saw the Scythe and wasted no time. Please have Cole Whitlock, called to the office immediately. Cole Whitlock, said the secretary. The Scythe didn't repeat himself just because he knew she heard. She wasn't willing to believe. Yes, Your Honor, I'll do it right away. Rowan knew Cole. Hell, everyone knew Cole Whitlock. Just a junior, he was already risen to his school's quarterback. He was going to take them all away to the league championship for the first time in forever. Secretary's voice powerful. And when he made the call into the intercom, she coughed and said his name, choking up, and the Scythe patiently waited Cole's arrival. Last thing Rowan wanted to do was antagonize the Scythe, and he was just slunk off the attendance window, gotten his red mitt, and gone to class. Just as with the mountain lion, he had to stand his ground. It was not the moment that would change his life. You're gleaning our star quarterback? I hope you know that. The Scythe's demeanor, so cordial at the moment before, took a turn toward Tombstone. I can see how it's any of your business. You're in my school, Rowan said. Guess that makes it my business. And then self-preservation kicked in, and he strode the attendance window just out of the Scythe's line of sight. He handed an forged hearty note, all while muttering stupid, stupid, stupid under his breath. He was lucky he wasn't born in time when death was natural, because he'd probably never survive to adulthood. As he turned to leave the office, he saw a bleak-eyed Cole Whitlock being led into the principal's office by the Scythe. The principal voluntarily ejected himself from his own office. Then he took the staff for explanation, but only received the teary-eyed shaking of their hands. No one seemed to notice Rowan was still lingering there, who cared about the lettuce when the beef was being devoured. He slipped past the principal, who had saw him just in time to put a hand on his shoulder. Son, you don't want to go in there. He was right. Rowan didn't want to go in there, but he went in anyway, closing the door behind him. There were two chairs in front of the principal's well-organized desk. The Scythe sat in one, Cole in the other. Hunched and sobbing, the Scythe burned Rowan a glare. The mountain lion, thought Rowan. Only this one actually had the power to end human life. His parents aren't here, Rowan said. He should take someone with him. Are you family? Does it matter? Then Cole raised his hand. Please don't make Ronald go, he pleaded. It's Rowan. Cole's expression shot to a higher horror, as if the error somehow sealed the deal. I knew that, I did, I really did. For all his bulk and bravado, Cole Whitlock was a scared little kid. It was what everyone became in the end. Rowan supposed only a Scythe would know. Rather than forcing Rowan to leave, the Scythe said, Grab a chair then, make yourself comfortable. As Rowan went down to pull the principal's desk chair, he wondered if the Scythe was being ironic or sarcastic, or if he'd even know what making oneself comfortable was impossible in the present. You can't do this to me, Cole begged. My parents will die. They'll just die. No, they won't, the Scythe corrected. They'll live on. Can you at least give them a few minutes to prepare? Rowan asked. Are you telling me how to do my job? I'm asking you for some mercy. The Scythe glared at him again, but this time it was somehow different. He just wasn't delivering intimidation, it was extracting something, studying something in Rowan. I've done this for many years, as I've said. In my expertise, a quick and painless gleaning is the greatest mercy I can show. And then at least give him a reason, tell him why he was going down. It's random, Rowan, Cole said. Everyone knows that. It's just freaking random. And there was something in the Scythe's eyes that said otherwise, so Rowan pressed. There's more to it, isn't there? The Scythe sighed. He didn't have anything. He was, after all, a Scythe, above the law in every way. He owed no one an explanation, but he chose to give one anyway. Removing old age from the equation, statistics from the age of mortality cite 7% of deaths as being automobile-related. Of those, 31% involved the use of alcohol, and those 14% were teenagers. Then he tossed Rowan a small calculator at the principal's desk. Figure it out yourself. Rowan took the time in crunching the number, knowing that every second taken for the second in life he brought for Cole. 0.303%, Rowan finally said. Which means, said the Scythe, that about 3 out of every 1,000 souls I glean will fit that profile. 1 out of every 333, your friend here just got a new car and has a record of driving to excess. So of the teens who fit that profile, I made a random choice. Cole buried his head in his hands, his tears intensifying. I'm such an idiot. He pressed his palms against his eyes as if trying to push them deep within his head. So tell me, the Scythe said calmly to Rowan, has the explanation eased his gleanings or made him suffering worse? Rowan shrunk a bit in his chair. Enough, said the Scythe. It's time. Then he produced from a pocket on his robe a small paddle shaped to fit over his hand, and the cloth back and the shiny metallic palm. Cole, who I have chosen for you, is shock that will induce cardiac arrest. Death will be quick and painless. Nowhere near as brutal as a car accident, you would have suffered the age of mortality. Suddenly, Cole thrust his hand out, grabbing Rowan's and holding it tightly. Rowan allowed it. He wasn't family. He wasn't even Cole's friend before today. It was what he was saying. Death makes a whole world keen. Rowan wondered if the world was about death when it make everyone strangers. He squeezed Cole's hand tighter, a silent promise that he wouldn't let go. Is there anything you want me to tell the people? Rowan asked. A million things, said Cole, but I can't think of any of them. Rowan resolved he would make up Cole's last words to share with his loved ones. They would be fine words, comforting ones. Rowan would find a way to make sense of the senseless. I'm afraid you'll have to let go of his hand for the procedure, Scythe said. No, Rowan told him. The shock could stop your heart too, the Scythe warned. So what, said Rowan. They'll revive me. Then he added, unless you decide to glean me too. Rowan was unaware that he would just dare the Scythe to kill him. In spite of the risk, he was glad he had done it. Very well. And without waiting an instant longer, the Scythe presented the paddle to Cole's chest. Rowan's vision went right, then dark. His entire body convulsed. He flew backward out of his chair and hit the wall behind him. It might have been painless for Cole, but not to Rowan. It hurt. It hurt more than anything. More pain than the person is supposed to feel. When the microscopic pain-killing nanites in his blood released in the numbing opiates, the pain subsided and the opiates took effect. And then his vision cleared. He saw Cole slumped in a chair and the Scythe reaching over to close his sightless eyes. The gleaning was complete. Cole Whitlock was dead. The Scythe stood and reached out to offer Rowan his hand, but Rowan didn't take it. He rose to the floor on his own, and although Rowan felt not an ounce of gratitude, he said, "Thank you for letting me stay." The Scythe regarded him a little too long, then said, "You stood your ground for a boy who fairly knew. You comforted him in the moment of death, bearing the pain of the jolt. You bore witness, even though no one called you to do so." Rowan shrugged. "I did what anyone would do." "Did anyone else offer?" The Scythe put it to him. "Your principal, the office staff, any of the dozen students we pass in the hall." "No," Rowan had to admit. "But what does it matter what I did? He's still dead, and you know what they say about good intentions." The Scythe nodded and glanced down at the ring sitting on his finger. "I suppose you'll ask me for immunity?" Rowan shook his head. "I don't want anything from you." "Fair enough," the Scythe said, turned to go, but hesitated before he opened the door. "Be warned that you will not receive any kindness from anyone but me for what you did here today," he said. "But remember that good intentions pave many roads. Not all of them lead to hell." The slap was just as jarring as the electric shock, even more so because Rowan wasn't expecting it. It came before lunch. As he was standing in his locker, he flew in front of his force and knocked him back, making the row of lockers resound like a steel drum. "You were there and you didn't stop it?" Murray Polvick's eyes flared in the grief and righteous indignation. He looked ready to reach up his nostrils with their long nails and extract his brain. "You just let him die?" Mara had been Cole's girlfriend for over a year. Like Cole, she was highly popular junior. As such, would actively avoid any interaction with sophomore rabble such as Rowan. But these were extraordinary circumstances. It wasn't like that, Rowan managed to blurt out before she swung again. This time he deflected her hand. She broke the nail, but she didn't seem to care. If nothing else, Cole's gleaning had given her perspective. It's exactly like that. You went in there and watched him die. Others had begun to gather, drawn as most were to the scent of conflict. He looked at the crowd with a sympathetic face, someone who might take this side. But all he saw were faces of his classmates in communal disdain. Mara was speaking and slapping for all of them. This is not what Rowan expected. Not that he wanted pats on the back for coming to Cole's aid in his last moments, but he wasn't expecting much of the unthinkable accusation. What are you, nuts? Rowan shouted at her. At all of them. You can't stop a Scythe from gleaning. I don't care, she wailed. You could have done something, but all you did was watch. I didn't do something. I held his hand. He settled him back into a locker of more strength than he thought she could possibly have. You're lying. He'd never hold your hand. He'd never touch any part of you. And then, I should have held his hand. And around the other kids scowled and whispered things that they clearly wanted him to hear. I saw him walking in the hall with a Scythe like they were best buddies. They came into school together this morning. I heard he gave the Scythe Cole's name. Someone told me he actually helped. He stormed the obnoxious kid who made the last accusation, Ralphie something or other. Heard from who? No one else was in the room, you moron. But it didn't matter. Rumors adhered to no logic but their own. Don't you get it? I didn't help the Scythe. I helped Cole, Rowan insisted. Yeah, helped him into a grave, someone said, and everyone else grumbled in agreement. It was no use. He was been tried and convicted, and all the more he denied it. The more convinced they'd be of his guilt that they didn't need an act of courage, they needed someone to blame. Someone to hate. They couldn't have taken their wrath on the Scythe, but Rowan Dasmich was a perfect kid candidate. I bet he got immunity for helping, a kid said. A kid who always been his friend. I didn't. Good, said Mara, absolute contempt. Then I hope the next Scythe comes for you. He knew she meant it, not just the moment, but forever. And if the next Scythe did ever come for him, she would relish the knowledge of his death, and a darkly sobering thought that there were now people in this world who actively wished him dead. It was one thing not to be noticed, it was something else entirely to be repository of the entire school's enmity. Only then did the Scythe's warning come back to him, that he'd received no kindness for what he had done to Cole. The man had been right, and he hated the Scythe for it, just as the others hated Rowan. 2042. It's the year that every child knows. It was the year when the computational power became infinite, or so close to infinite that it no longer be measured. It was the year he knew everything. The cloud evolved into the thunderhead, and now there was no is now about everything resides in near infinite memory of the thunderhead for anyone who wants to access it. But like so many things, once we had possession of the infinite knowledge, it suddenly seemed less important, less urgent. Yes, we know everything, and I often wonder if anyone bothers to look at all the knowledge. There are academics, of course, who study that we already know, but to what end? The very idea of schooling used to be about learning so we could improve our lives in the world. But the perfect world needs no improvement. Like most everything else we do, education from grade school through the highs of university, this is just the way to keep us busy. 2042 is the year we conquered death. Also the year we stopped counting. Sure, we still numbered years for a few more decades, but the moment of mortality, passing time, ceased to matter. I don't know exactly when it switched over to Chinese calendar. Year of the dog, year of the goat, the dragon, and so on. Can't exactly say when animal activists around the world began calling for equal billing for their own favorite species, adding the year of the otter and the whale and the penguin. I couldn't tell you when they stopped repeating, and when it was decreed that every year henceforth would be named after a different species. All I know for sure is that the year of the ocelot. As for things I don't know, I'm sure they'll all be up in the thunderhead for anyone in the motivation to look. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. A thunderhead. As if all life could be just smushed down into one giant box in the sky. I mean, maybe. I don't know. It's not a crazy idea, I guess. Anyways, today we read pages 01 to 30. I don't know why I said it like that. Next time we'll be reading pages 31 to 47. It's going to be really difficult looking through this to get a mojo for the video. And yeah, so like the 20 pages, that's going to be really hard mojo to get. Oh, right, sorry. I forgot we have chapters. We're also reading chapter 3 next episode. Let me just. I'm not used to. Good enough. All right, cool. Yeah. So it's gonna be really weird. Like, literally today was one of, if not, yeah, literally today was the only base episode where it's 1 to 30. We don't got any more of those. We got 31 to 47, 48 to 63. We got like that going on. Next episode's also the, oh no, it's not. Never mind. All right. But yeah, I really love this story because it takes an alternate look on life. And it's not going to be gory, and there's not going to be like people going, oh, screw you, this. But it's definitely a crazy story, psychologically. And there's a sequel called, there's two sequels to this book. One's called Thunderbird, and the other one's called The Toll. I own both. So I think I own the Toll. I own Thunderbird. I know that for 100%, but I don't know if I own the Toll. If not, I'll just buy it for the series. And considering we have 6 books, for this series, or for this bookmark, honestly, I might just do the entire Scythe series in just this bookmark. It was either going to be this one or another book entirely, which is another book I really want to read and get to. But yeah. So, now that we started this book, it's time for Reading Corner of the Day, doing it up Stonsey's way. Bop. Today, we're reading about a dog that really saddens me and actually changed my life forever. It's the Rottweiler. The reason why it's changed my life forever, I guess that's story time with Stonsey real quick. At a young age of 5 years old, my father was cleaning the entire house. Of course, I was too young to help. He was going up the stairs, and of course, I wanted to go up the stairs because who's on the stairs? My Rottweiler, Samson. I love Samson. And so I was going to, you know, jump over him to get to my toys, which were upstairs. And I jumped straight into his jaws, which gave me a beautiful scar and also took off a good part of my skeleton. My skull. I had a 0.5% chance of surviving. And, well, y'all already know how that went. So, yeah. In that hospital, I actually I promised something that day. And I'm being serious. I said, if you were to bring me someone right now, I'll forever be in your debt. And I will serve under your right wing. AKA be kind and never do wrong. And a nurse came in that moment. So, that's why I do the things I do, such as audiobooks and stuff like I do today to help others or teach or whatever. My dog, Samson, did that for me. Changed my life forever. Tried to kill me, but, Now, usually the story ends with, oh, we put the dog down, I never got to meet him ever again. Nope. We kept that dog for its entire lifespan until 2024, July, I think, July of last year, we had to put him down. Because he just wasn't doing good. And good Lord wouldn't take him. So, yeah. We had him on a bunch of different medicines for years and years and years. But he still hooked it. He's a great dog. Tried to kill all my other dogs, though. And my friends. So, yeah. He was always in our kitchen. Such a good dog. He, tore the jugular on multiple occasions out of, my old dog, Jack, who died in 2022 of old age. He died in my grandpa's arms. Really sad. So yeah. I don't think I have the reason why you should learn today. Because that really is a downer. I think I said last episode, the episode before the last episode of the Butterfly Garden, I was like, the next episode I'm gonna be really sad. Yeah. That does sadden me, but it's okay. I think we could all take a lesson from this, actually. I think the lesson we could take from this is it's okay to feel sad, and it's good to move on. Because intelligence doesn't necessarily lie in just saying things, knowing things, or even teaching things. It's using it and using it for yourself and others. I've taught a millennia of people that it's healthy to let go. So I think I should take my own lesson to heart. He's in a better place now. I'll miss my Bubby Sampson. I'll miss my doggy Jack. And I'll miss all the dogs I've had and lost. And that's okay. Because if I were to always live in sadness, I don't think I'd ever be able to do any videos. And some people gave up. Some people don't. And I just hope to whoever I'm speaking to right now, whatever's happening in your life, hope you're doing good. Now, let's get back on track, for we will learn about the history of the Rottweiler. Now, the history of the Rottweiler is that the Rottweiler's ancestors are probably Roman drover dogs, responsible for driving and guarding herd of cattle as they accompanied Roman troops of the long marches. At least one of these marches led to southern Germany. There are some of the people those dog settles throughout the succeeding centuries. The dogs continued to play a vital role in the cattle drovers, around which has become the town of Rottwell, which is derived from red tile, has become the town of red tile roof of the Roman baths that had been unearthed in the 8th century. Rottweiler preserved, prospered, and became the center of cattle commerce. Their dogs drove and guarded cattle, guarded the money earned by the cattle sales and served as draft animals. So evolved the Rottweiler Metzgerhund butcher dog, an integral component of the town's industry until the mid-19th century, by the time cattle driving was outlawed and dog carting was replaced by donkey carts and railroads. With little need for the once vital breed, the Rottweiler fell into such decline that it was nearly lost. Which is the realization that the breed was teetering near the extinction, dog fanciers formed the club in 1901 and set out to revive it, which, even though the 1901 club was short-lived, it did formulate the breed standard. 2 subsequent clubs were formed in 1907, one of which being promoted the breed of police dog. The 2 clubs merged in 1921. The breed continued to grow, and by 1931 had arrived in America and gained American Kennel Company, or AKC, recognition. The Rottweiler recovered from its brush with extinction to work its way as the second most popular breed in America by the early 1990s. Its popularity has since slightly waned, and it's finding itself its home better suited to its needs. So, what's the temperament? How do I keep is my Rottweiler good with kids? Well, it's confident, bold, and alert, and imposing. The Rottweiler is a popular choice in the protection abilities. It's befitting of the self-assured nature. It tends to be headstrong, stubborn. It's reserved and often guarded towards strangers. It may be overly protective and perceives that its family being threatened. As a powerful breed, it needs socialization, consistent training, and daily exercise. True. Love that dog. Alright. Now, what's the upkeep? How do I keep my Rottweiler healthy and in check? Well, the upkeep is that the Rottweiler needs daily physical and mental activity, either in the form of long walks or jogs, and a vigorous game in the safe area, as well as in obedience lessons. It enjoys cold weather and may become overheated in hot weather. It can live outdoors in a temperate or cool climate, as long as plenty of shelter is available. It needs to spend significant time inside with the human family, however, so that correct human socialization can occur. Co-care is minimal, consisting only of occasional brushing to remove dead hair. Now, if you're a child, please cover your ears. If you're an adult or teenager who owns a Rottweiler, please listen in, as we're going to be talking about the health. Major concerns are CHD, elbow dysplasia, SAS, and osteosarcoma. Tell me about it. Minor concerns are gastric torsion, hyperthyroidism, and allergies. They're occasionally seen with PRA, cataracts, seizures, VWD, panostasis, and ectropin. They're suggested tests when you take them to the doctor for the hip, elbow, cardiac, eye, and VWD. Though I would also suggest that you should be there with them at all times, as these dogs are very defensive. Their lifespan is from 8 to 11 years. Now, what's the 8 to 11 years? Huh. My Rottweiler lived to be 15. Ain't that crazy? Sorry. What's the form? What's the function? How do I keep my what does the Rottweiler look like? Like, just imagine you don't see those pictures in front of you. So what's the form? What's the function? What does it do? Well, the Rottweiler is a medium-large breed, slightly longer than it is tall, and robust with a powerful, substantial build. It combines the abilities necessary to drive cattle for long distances, as well as serve as a formidable guard dog. Where did I lose? Jobs that entail great strength, agility, and endurance. Its trot is sure and powerful. A strong reach and drive. Its coat is straight, coarse, and dense. His expression reflects the Rottweiler at its best, noble, alert, and self-assured. Now for the tier list. Now let me explain. 5 is the best, 4 is better, 3 is average, 2 is the worst, and 1 is the worst unless it comes to grooming. Now, energy level and exercise requirements are at a 3. Playfulness and affection level are at a 2, though not true. Friendliness towards dogs and strangers are at a 1. Friendliness towards other pets is at a 2, true. Ease of training is at a 3, so pretty average. Watchdog and protection ability are both at a 5. Grooming requirements is at a 1, which is true. Cold tolerance is at a 3, with a debuff of the heat tolerance being at a 2. I don't know if I'm using that word right. The healthy weight of a male Rottweiler should be 85 to 135 pounds, and a female should be 80 to 100 pounds. The height of the average male Rottweiler is 24 to 27 inches, and female is 22 to 25 inches, and it's not feet, or else we'd be living in a world of giants. Maybe not giant as it is derpy looking. The next dog breed we'll be learning about is the one you'll be learning about in the next episode. So, hope you guys a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time for a probably more happier dog breed talking. Bye-bye!